Experts tell us expanding international trade is vital to growing the economies in Tampa and Orlando. And now there's a program to do just that, the global economy. We're talking about that today. This is In Focus. International trade is big business in Florida. So Enterprise Florida tells us the Sunshine State ranks 8th in the nation when it comes to exporting goods. International trade supports 2.5 million jobs right here in Florida, and 70,000 of those, they're in Tampa. So Florida trade is valued at $147 billion with a B dollars. And there are now 2 new programs aimed at actually increasing international trade, one on the state level and the other targeting growth specifically in the Tampa area. So here to put this in focus for us right now here in Orlando, the Senior Vice President of International Trade and Development at Enterprise Florida, Manny Mencia, is here with us. Thank you, Manny, for your expertise today. And then in St. Petersburg, Tampa Mayor Bob Buckhorn, there you are, Mayor, and from the Tampa Hillsborough Economic Development Corporation, President and CEO Craig Richard. Gentlemen, thank you so much, sincerely.
Thank you.
So first, a lot of us watching right now, we're not international business majors. So, and I wanted to start off with you. What are we talking about? Are we talking about this stuff, our exports, or are we more concerned about the investors, the foreign investors coming in? Dumb that down for us.
Well, both are extremely important to the Florida economy. Being that Florida is a peninsular state, international business, both the trade side and the investment side, are of particular importance to the state. As you said, a very high percentage of our jobs depend on international trade. So being able to sell our goods supports our manufacturing base, grows our exports. We talked about high technology. We're the 3rd largest exporter of high technology in the United States, so it's a way of growing that sector. And finally, foreign investors that come in the state of Florida create jobs that tend to pay much higher than average wages for our citizens.
So we're trying to make it easier then for these foreign investors. So I want to talk about Venture Bridge Florida, one of the 2 new programs. We'll be focusing on that. How does that benefit us, Manny?
Okay, Venture Bridge is essentially a training and information platform for small foreign investors that are looking into the U.S. market. So to us, it's a way of, 1, attracting them to Florida, not to other locations, and 2, preparing them so that they are able to succeed once they come into the Florida market. So through this online platform, they can learn how to open a business, they can learn about distribution channels, how to open bank accounts, etc. And then the next step of this process is, through Venture Bridge, we place companies in the right location for them. For example, if the company is interested in the Tampa Bay region, then the idea is Venture Bridge will place the company in one of the incubators or accelerators in that area. So the entire state wins and the investor wins because it's much more likely to succeed in the U.S. market through Florida.
So it's improving services for them. I know this is a first of its kind and relatively new. We do know in Tampa, Craig, I want to go to you. You're working on something similar there in Tampa. It's the global Tampa Bay. When we think of Miami, as dominating in Florida when it comes to international trade. But talk to us about your program then and how it's going to benefit you and me and everybody.
Indeed. Well, thank you again for having us. But Global Tampa Bay is essentially a collaborative effort between 3 counties, Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, and Pasco County. And the whole premise behind that is that a region has a better chance of being successful at attracting investment to the region and also helping our local companies expand to markets globally. Our potential for market growth is very limited if you're just looking at what's within the city or the county or even within our region. So we have to expand globally for our companies to benefit from the opportunities that are available to them. Our 3 EDCs are responsible for working with small to medium-sized businesses to help them understand the opportunities that are available to them internationally. And we're also responsible for helping international companies discover Tampa Bay as a business destination.
But don't offices, though, Craig, already exist, offices that allow this virtual training to kind of make these foreign investors feel snug and comfy once they get over here? Or is this just an enhanced version of what exists?
It's more of an enhanced and customized version of what exists. When you think about potentially international growth and exporting goods and services, a lot of large companies already know about that, so they take advantage of the resources that are available to them. Many of our small to mid-sized companies are not aware of those. They don't have the resources to invest in international business development officers or offices abroad. So it's important that the local EDCs, economic development corporations, can show them what types of resources that are available to them to help them in that regard.
So, Mayor Buckhorn, to get foreign investors here to the Sunshine State, what are, say, 2 things that we want them investing in?
Well, that's an interesting question, Allison, and I think first and foremost we need to look at what are the natural attributes that we have as a state or as a community. I mean, for us, the easy lift is Port Tampa Bay, the largest deepwater port in the state of Florida, responsible for over 80,000 jobs in the Tampa Bay area, and Tampa International Airport, which is our springboard to our international trade. The logistics and the ease of access to Panama Canal, we are the closest deepwater port to the Panama Canal, which means that containers can get from the Port of Tampa to the state of Maine without a single traffic light, and we can be the gateway to the entire southeast United States. So there are some built-in advantages to what we are pitching as we go on the road and tell our story. From our perspective, Allison, we want to project Tampa onto the global stage. And over the last 6, 7, 8 years, with Manny's help, we've been able to do that and have really been aggressive about reaching out. But I think there are a number of opportunities for us as a community, and each part of the state has different strengths and weaknesses that they can piggyback on and hitchhike on and grow from.
So, Manny, I want to talk then about exporting. What kinds of things are we exporting the most?
Well, that's a very good question, because oftentimes when I first talk to people, immediately think of people think of agriculture and perhaps fertilizers. And while those are still extremely important sectors for the Florida economy, the fact of the matter is that Florida has become a very effective exporter of high technology and manufactured products. For example, our largest export to the world is aviation, aerospace, and defense products. So we sell more of that than any other product that we sell, or line of products. Following that is information technology and telecommunications, also a huge sector for exports from the state of Florida. Following that, things like medical devices. Florida is the second largest manufacturer of medical devices in the United States, transportation products, etc. And what all of those tend to have in common is that they are high growth and high wage industries, which is very important for us, not only to attract the jobs, but to attract the right jobs to the state.
So we're exporting like crazy, even though I know back in 2016, that was when we saw about a 3.5% decline. We're not on that trend anymore, right?
Not at all. On the contrary, through the middle of the year, origin exports from the state of Florida are up by about an 8.8% clip, almost 9%. So it's a very robust, healthy growth once again. And more important, those key sectors that I mentioned to you are the ones leading the charge. So it's a very healthy environment, and I only see good things in the future.
And so, Craig, we're not just talking about products here, right? We're also talking about services.
Absolutely. When you think about some of the services that we've been able to help promote abroad, I think back on this mission that we had to Mexico City just recently. In fact, the mayor was with us on that mission. We brought about 15 companies with us from the Tampa Bay area. Those 15 companies were able to develop over $34 million in export sales. And some of the services that they were providing were everything from music production services to refurbishment of stadium seats. In fact, we had one company that did an outstanding got an outstanding contract to do just that. So it's a myriad of services that are being offered, not just any one particular goods or services. It's a lot of different things from our small businesses.
Well, gentlemen, we are going to stretch our legs for a couple of minutes. The conversation continues right here on InFocus right after this break. You're watching this exclusively on Spectrum Networks. Here on InFocus, talking the global economy. So we mentioned earlier international trade supports 2.5 million jobs in Florida. So Mayor, I want to head out to you. What kind of jobs are we talking about here?
Allison, I think it varies. I mean, earlier in the segment we talked about the port. You know, those are 80,000 jobs. They may not be all white-collar jobs. They may not require a college education. They are welders, they are longshoremen, they are folks driving trucks, but they provide people an opportunity to move into the middle class and beyond. Those are great jobs for people who work with their hands and a big part of our local economy. But there are other types of jobs that are being created as well, and you think about all the manufacturing that's taking place in the Bay Area. You think about the electronics and the computer technology that we're shipping to other places. You think about the agriculture business. Hillsborough County is one of the largest ag producers in the state. Our strawberries go worldwide. So the types of jobs vary from very blue collar to very white collar. But the important thing is trade is a job generator. And it's important that we as a country and that we as a state don't look inward, but we look to project Florida onto the international stage and create opportunities for direct foreign investment as well as trade between our countries, whoever that country may be, because it's jobs on their end and it's jobs on our end, and that is a win-win.
So what kind of salaries are we talking about, Mayor?
Again, it could range from, minimum wage, or it could run all the way to, very, very white-collar jobs. I can tell you that the 80,000 folks that are working at the port or are impacted by the port, those are jobs largely for working Tampanians who are given an opportunity to have a good living and to provide for those families. Those are predominantly blue-collar jobs, but they are important parts of our economy and an important way for folks who may not have a college education to have a good living.
So let's focus harder then on the mom and pops, Craig. Is this just a big old world that they'll never be a part of, or is there an opportunity for them to perhaps apply for some government-sponsored export financial assistance? What do they need to know?
Well, what they need to know is first they need to talk directly to Global Tampa Bay, and that's either the Hillsborough EDC or the Pinellas or Pasco EDC, and we can help them determine what types of resources are available for them. Thankfully, Manny Mancia and EFI have done a fantastic job in offering export assistance to these companies that are interested in exporting their goods or services. But we found that a lot of these companies are just unaware of the services that are available to help them in trying to reach the global market. And that's what we're here for.
And Mandy, I want to talk about theme parks. I mean, we have a lot of attraction design studios here, and it's so cool to go inside these studios and to see what they're doing in Dubai, in the Netherlands. So talk about that impact on our economy here.
Actually, there's quite an interesting cluster of companies in Florida that service the many attractions that we have throughout the state. So very recently, we've decided to begin to work with those companies and help them globalize more. A few months ago, we took a number of them, about 5 of them, to a trade show in Hong Kong, and now we're doing it the same thing into the largest show in Amsterdam in a few weeks. And the beauty of this is that these are very high ticket items that these companies sell. although these companies tend to be small, mid-sized companies, which, by the way, is the norm in the state of Florida. One of the great fallacies is that you have to be a big company to be a successful exporter. We have thousands of companies in this field and many other fields in Florida that can compete with anybody around the world very successfully and are still small and mid-sized companies.
Some with fewer than 20 employees. I think about 70% of the exporters have fewer than 20, which is shocking to me.
95+% of all the exporters in Florida would meet any definition of a small company established by the Small Business Administration. And in fact, as you say, probably the overwhelming majority of those are 20 employees or less, some cases 100 employees or less, but certainly small businesses.
But doesn't Venture Bridge, though, target the companies that have sales of at least 500,000?
Venture Bridge focuses on the foreign company that wants to invest in the state of Florida. So Venture Bridge is a platform for a foreigner that doesn't know our market to help them familiarize and come here. We're talking now about domestic Florida companies that we help export and, more important, diversify their exports. Diversify is very important.
Our final thoughts, folks, when we come back here on InFocus, and as we head to break, a look at Florida's top 5 export countries. In focus, and going back to the fact that Florida, we're just really exporting goods like crazy. I mean, in fact, I read that we sent out more goods than 190 countries last year. There's a little over 200 countries. So, Craig, if we're one of the world's leaders in international trade, aren't we doing something right already then, right?
We are indeed. I mean, Florida has a very hot economy right now. We're fortunate to be one of the leaders in job growth and export opportunities, and those things go hand in hand. If we're not leading the state and the nation in export opportunities, we probably wouldn't be renowned right now in our job growth activities. And so it's important that we keep the pedal to the metal as we move forward into the next year or two to make sure that opportunities and programs like Enterprise Florida is able to be nimble in attracting the types of foreign direct investment that comes to this region and this state that fuels the job growth. It's important that we also continue to offer these export assistance services to our local businesses. We get a lot of attention about the types of companies that are moving here, but the reality is the majority of the job growth that occurs here in Florida and in Tampa Bay is done by our own local businesses. And typically, those are the small businesses that range anywhere from 10 to 100 employees. So I'd like to see us just keep the pedal to the metal and keep exports thriving.
And Manny, I'd love some final thoughts from you just on the state of our global economy and where we are or need to be as a state.
Well, I think Florida does a lot of things right. I think we have a boundless future when it comes to international business. I foresee Florida in these decades to come transitioning from a hemispheric business center for the market of the Americas into a truly global platform, the epicenter of international business, east, west, and north, south. This is a bit aspirational, of course, but I think it's important to dream big because I believe Florida's potential justifies that.
And Mayor, with all the current trade talks and tariffs, what's the climate like on a national level?
Unfortunately, it's not good. I mean, there are some in our Congress and in the White House that would rather retreat into a nationalistic perspective. Think about this, Allison. We are the third largest state in America. We are already a global economy. We need to be engaged with our trading partners around the world. That means resolving the NAFTA questions with Canada and Mexico. That means coming back with some version of TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That's 40% of the world's GDP that we are not engaged with in a leadership capacity. It means funding Enterprise Florida. This rhetoric that we heard from the legislature about picking winners and losers could not be further from the truth. We need to project Florida on the international stage. It doesn't happen by by magic. And trading with Alabama is not going to get us to that state of preeminence. We need to be aggressive. We need to be focused. We are bilingual and trilingual as a state. We need to take our place on that global stage. And it happens with people like Manny. It happens with the governor taking road trips. It happens with mayors going visiting counterparts and encouraging those relationships. And it takes funding. You cannot walk away from this and say trade is just going to come, because it will not.
And Craig, about 30 seconds left. I mean, global economy is not something I talk about at the dinner table all the time. So what's one takeaway, the one takeaway for our viewers today?
The one takeaway is this: when companies are able to export their services on an international level, they actually create jobs here locally. So when we bring these companies out to different markets, when they secure a contract for a sale, well, they have to fill that contract locally, and they do it with local employment, local people. So that's the key takeaway. Exports and foreign direct investments are jobs here, right here in Tampa Bay and in Florida.
Bada bing. Craig and Mayor Manny, thank you, gentlemen, for your expertise. I learned a lot on this show today here on InFocus. So, folks, thank you so much for watching. We will see you right here next week. I'm Allison Walker Torres. Have the best Sunday ever. See you next week.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.